Welcome back to another episode of the Four Archetypes. As you can see today, we are missing an archetype, but Whitman will be back next week. We are here, and the Chain Gang is here. My favorite two people. Dr. Eric Tomlinson is here, and Dr. Lisa Hong is here with us. And Dr. Eric is using his amazing wit as we start. Speaking of wit. Okay. Welcome back to another episode of the Archetypal Symbols and Fairy Tales. Is what we're doing with Mary Louise von Franz. And we started with Bluebeard. And what we'd like to do today is go into another tale. And this is a Greek tale from the Isle of Lesbos. So we will start with that story. But first, I just wanted to check in with the Wrecking Crew. Lisa, how you doing, my dear?
Doing great. Doing great. It's a beautiful spring day.
Dr. Eric?
I am doing well, and I thank you for asking.
For answering or asking?
Yeah, hey, you see my podcast viewers, participants. You know what? Because of that, I will reanimate you in my reflection.
Well, thank you. All right. So, Dr. Lisa, would you like to read the story before we start?
Sure.
And we'll go into.
We are drawing this story from the Marie Louise von Franz third series in Reflections.
Archetypal Symbols and Fairy Tales. Yeah.
And this is on page 85. It's called The 40 Dragons. It's a Greek tale from Lesbos. A summarized version. Okay. A king had a daughter, and one day she set out, determined to kill the 40 dragons that pilfered her father's storage houses. She managed to slay 39 of the dragons, but the 40th recognized her, and she was only able to cut off a piece of its nose and head. This dragon survived and had his wounded face and nose gilded. He thus gained the love of the princess, and they were married. After a period of happy marriage, the dragon said that he would like to go visit his father and mother. He took his new wife with him. Then, when they were by the sea, he hung her by her hair from an olive tree and informed her that she could hang there as he went to gather 40 branches for a fire. He intended to burn her at that place, but when he was away fetching wood, a sailor from a passing ship saw her hanging there and rescued her. When the dragon returned with the branches and found his victim gone, he swore to pursue her as long as necessary to catch her again. He tirelessly followed her as she hid and escaped from him time and time again, from ship to land, to an old woman, and finally to a prince. She had asked him to build her a palace in the ocean, encircled by a moat filled with pitch. When the dragon came to take her, she tricked him into going first, and from behind, pushed the dragon headfirst into the pitch, where he perished.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. So, the story is about revenge. The story is about, the story is about revenge. It's about taking vengeance. So the first part of the story is the young daughter of a king decides that she is going to kill 40 dragons that basically pilfer her father's kingdom. Okay, so the first part is we need to understand the symbol of the dragon. The dragon is a symbol of transformation. The dragon contains all the destructive elements. Dragons are also destructive elements, meaning that they could create havoc and rain down fire from the skies. But dragons can also be a source of change. And that source of change is in the feminine. The dragon is connected to the feminine. It's a feminine symbol. It's not a masculine symbol. The dragon is both male and female, right? So they don't need to mate to create an offspring. And they're also, they have eggs. So their offsprings are not born, they're born out of an egg. So the symbol of transformation in the egg is the symbol of change, is the symbol of growth, the symbol of creation. So the dragon contains both of these factors. So in the anticipation that this woman, this princess, goes after the 40 dragons, these are signs of maturity, that she is integrating parts of herself to become a woman. So from a young girl to a woman, to a queen. So the first part of it is that she has to slay the 40. But as she gets to the 40th, the dragon recognizes her and escapes her, except she manages to cut off a piece of its head and a piece of its nose. Okay, so that's also symbolic. The head maintaining knowledge and understanding and wisdom, forethought, and the nose being the way we sense and internalize the world.
And also the way that we forge in terms of direction.
Correct.
And movement.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the sense of smell is the only one of our 5 senses that bypasses our frontal lobes for processing, and it goes directly into our limbic system, into our emotions. It goes directly to a portion of our limbic system called the amygdala, which is our danger signal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for survival. It's for, I remember eating a piece of a pear when I was a kid, and before I even thought about it, before I even had time for it to register, I was spitting it out. Instantly, because the sense of smell lets you know whether something is foreign or poisonous to you or harmful to you. So it's interesting that it winds up being covered with gold.
So what happens is that the dragon survived and had its wounded face and nose gilded. He thus gained the love of the princess, and they were married. So,
Dr. Lahab, I would like to know your and Lisa's thoughts on why this was the one that recognized her. Out of the 40 dragons, this was the one that says recognize, or wait, but the 40th recognized her. Yeah. How would she have known about? What does that mean? I don't know.
Well, to be able to recognize something is to be able to see something within oneself. The dragon is a piece of her, right? The dragon is her dragon. It's her dragon to slay is the term. The dragon to slay. What is the dragon to slay? It's the internal dragon. This is her dragon to slay. She was able to slay the other 39. This is the final piece of individuation. So you're basically going through an individuation process for this young woman. She's finding more about herself, right? She's seduced by the dragon. She falls for the dragon, and the dragon almost kills her. What does he do? He hangs her by her hair from an olive tree in the middle of the ocean. So as she's hanging there, a sailor that's passing by saves her. So she finds a way to save herself. Remember, she is our heroine. She finds a way to save herself, and then to outwit and outrun the dragon. Okay, but what is her crisis? Her crisis is she needs to integrate the dragon. She can't run away from it. Now she's running and hiding. Now she can't integrate the dragon. At first, she wanted to hold the dragon and be with the dragon. Now she has to integrate the dragon. From the beginning, that was the source of her journey. The source of her journey was to understand and grow, to change, and to become powerful. And the only way to do that is to overcome your dragons, overcome your fear, overcome your jealousy, overcome your greed. And the last part is overcoming her greed. She sees this dragon and she sees it as an opportunity. She doesn't see it as danger.
I find that's a good point. I find that interesting that the dragon, her dragon, coaxed her into going somewhere in a seemingly with a very good reason to do so, to visit his parents.
Ooh,
It sounded like a very innocent thing. So, and I think our dragons do that to us quite often. They lure us to a place with something that seems so not only innocent and innocuous, but sometimes kindly and good.
Yes. Yeah. They lead us down very, very, very closed paths. But those paths are the paths that help us change. It is in crisis that we change, right? It's the crisis of her situation that forces the change. It forces her to survive. It forces her to find another way.
Yes.
Right? At first, she let herself down, so she ends up hiding. Right? She like, oh, I'm doomed. So the first part is run, hide, right? You said the amygdala, run, hide.
Yeah.
Run, hide from your dragon, run, hide from your dragon. And then in the end, she has to face the dragon. But what does she do? She's learned, just like he tricked her, now she's going to trick him. She's learned. From behind, she pushed the dragon headfirst in the pit where he perished. She was finally able to consume her dragon without her dragon consuming her. You know, this is a modern fairy tale. It's about us and our dragons. It's about us and our fights. It's about us and the things that we need to overcome. The things that we need to integrate. The fear, the anger, the anguish, the trauma of our past that we need to face. It is these things that we face that help us move into a more whole state, right? This is the individuation process. So how do we change? How do modern people change? We change by facing our fear. We change by going to school. We change by going to work. We change by committing to a relationship. We change by taking on a project. We change by volunteering our time. We change by doing something nice for somebody else. This is how we change. This is how we transform. When we talk about transformation, we're not talking about throwing you into a fire. We're talking about the internal fire that we all have. And it's how we use that fire that makes us who we are and how powerful we are. You can see this young lady is quite powerful, right? She's quite powerful at what she does. She's quite powerful as all the things that make a modern woman powerful. She's able to face her fears. She's able to recognize them. She's able to overcome them. She's able to figure out a different way, a different path, a different strategy to face something that potentially can be very destructive.
what I like about this one is it ties together two of the things that Dr. Lisa and I was talking about last week, and about change. And Dr. Lisa was talking about how it has to start from within. We have to want it, we have to desire it, and we have to be the one that initiates it. It can't come from any other place. It has to start from within. And then once that happens, we need other things to help us, to move us along. Look what she did. She went from ship to land. She went to an old woman. And it says, finally, she went to a prince. It was a process of her actions after internally her wanting to slay this dragon within her. We can't do it sitting in a vacuum. You know, we have to be actively pursuing new things and new experiences and new ideas and new attitudes and new feelings in order to learn to slay our dragons.
Yeah. Well, I think the first part, Dr. Lisa, I don't know what you thought, but the first part, she overcomes her father's fears. That's the first part. He never faces the dragons. They rob him blind, but he never faces the dragons. So the first part of transformation is she has to face those fears that her father has, right? The complex. She has to face the complex. And the complex is that these dragons are stronger than I am, and I can't do anything about them. Well, she slays that idea. She puts that idea to rest very quickly. After going after 39 dragons, that's a lot of dragons. So she slays quite a few dragons that her father was terrified of, right? There was one dragon that was left. And what is that dragon? The dragon is the internal dragon, the masculine part of her. She had to slay it because now it was terrorizing her, but she didn't know how it was terrorizing her. She didn't know how she was seduced by it. So she had to face the animus, right? So this is how she faces the animus. At first, she tries to recoil and run. Well, you can't run from what you carry internally. Wherever you go, there you are. You're not going to go very far. You could have a private jet. You could have a rocket to the moon. Whatever you carry is going to be with you when you unpack. When you get there, it's like, hey, what are we going to do? That's the voice that's going to come out. And you're like, oh, I thought I left you behind. No, you didn't. Why would you leave me behind? I'm always with you. So that voice you don't let go of. Just because you changed to, you lived in Alaska and now you live in sunny Hawaii. And you love the sun. Yeah, that solves a lot of the heating issues and warmth issues and sun issues, but it does not solve the internalized damage and pain. The internalized damage and pain still has to be worked through. So the first part of her journey is to face her father's fear, right? She's very close to her father. Obviously, she loves this human being because she wants to overcome what he's terrified of. She wants to liberate him as much as she wants to liberate herself. But in the process of trying to liberate someone else, she realizes that this is about her liberation. It's not about his. This is about her demons, her complexes, not his. Right? And where do her 40 dragons live? They live in the father complex. Because they're his terror. You know, oh, there's 40 dragons. So what does he tell his little daughter? Imagine. There are 40 dragons, and they come at any time, and they take from our stories. Some winters, we fare well, and some winters, they take too much, and we fare badly. But we can't do anything about them. We're terrified of them. they could destroy us all. And so that's the first, like, so why, you know, I have to face these dragons. I have to rid this kingdom and of these menaces. I was watching The Woman King yesterday. Powerful, powerful warrior archetype movie. Powerful. She does an amazing job. She should take the Oscar for her role. She was out of body. She was amazing. I couldn't tell who was acting. She was amazing. But so I recommend that highly. It's on Netflix. But she faces her dragon. She faces her fear. I won't give away the movie by talking about aspects of it, but she has to face her dragons also, the woman queen. Before she becomes a queen, she has to face, it's a ravenous dragon that she has to face. So she has a dream. And the dream is that she's out in the wild and she senses a beast coming for her. And she wakes up terrified. She's a fierce warrior. So waking up terrified, and you're a fierce warrior, that's not easy. So she wakes up and she's shaking and shivering and says, I see this beast. What does it look like? I don't know. What is this beast? I don't know. Well, go make offerings to the gods. Oh, no. Go make offerings to the dead so they might protect you from this beast. And at first, her first interpretation of what is this beast is mistaken. It's an old enemy that arises that she hasn't seen in a very long time. It's very terrifying because of what that old enemy had done. But as you go through the movie, she realizes what is the beast. It's her. She's terrified of her. So that's as much as I'm going to give about the movie. We should do an interpretation of that movie. I think it's a fantastic movie. Dr. Eric, I think you will find it amazing. I think you'll love it. But
Well, Viola Davis is a great actress.
she was phenomenal. She was out of body. It was like, it was one of the great acting. You just watch her in action. You can't tell she's an actor. And that's the biggest compliment. It's like you can't tell who you're watching. Is she a real life warrior or she's an actor? And Viola Davis does that. So with that, we get back to our dragons. And our dragons are our beasts. They're ours. They're not other people's. So the biggest dragon that we have to face is our fear. And our fear can come from our fathers and mothers. It doesn't necessarily have to be our fear. There could have been a fear that was already there, and we internalized it growing up with these people. The fear of being abandoned, the fear of not being protected, the fear of being ravaged or killed,
the fear of being like one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where we go. We always, in our darkness, we find the fear and give into it. in her darkness, she has to face her fear. At first, she can't. That's why everybody runs and hides. It's a normal human state, right? Dr. Eric, it's in the amygdala.
Yes, sir.
It is your response to danger. Dr.
Yes,
Lisa,
sir.
you had a thought you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think the idea of running away from something within us that we know exists, that we think we can shed
Yeah.
by changing a persona, our clothing, our makeup, the music we listen to, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, the place that we live, a job. Those are many typical ways we might be trying to run away. But I think in the storyline that we can all relate to, the running away part, but I think in the story is also that part of embracing your shadow and becoming intimate with it.
Yeah.
Becoming intimate with that thing that you need to face, and making it and possessing it and being possessed by it, and having it be prominent in your life when it's actually something that you need to deal with and bring closure to for individuation. I think that process is not discussed as much or reflected in movies as much.
Yeah.
But that is also a common experience that we all go through. And I think this story demonstrates both aspects of becoming intimate with the very thing that we need to shed, and also running away from it towards the individuation process.
It's beautifully said, right? It's exactly what she did. She became intimate with the thing that she needed to face. And you can't, because that's going to lead you down to a very dangerous road. You're going to be possessed by, as Dr. Lisa put it, the shadow. The shadow possessed her. The shadow of the dragon, her shadow, possessed her. Oh, I've killed 39 dragons. What's another dragon? I could deal with this. The shadow possessed her. That hubris of the shadow that says, no biggie. They get out of line, we could always kill them.
I'm maimed. I'm not that threatening anymore.
Yeah. Look at me. You cut my nose off. You cut my head off.
Yeah.
I can neither think nor smell.
Mm-hmm.
I am no danger to you. And that's the danger. That's when the alarm bells need to go off.
It leads to a thought that I had about the ending, which is, I don't know if this was intentional. It probably was, but brilliantly done, in my opinion, because how did he die? He died engulfed by being engulfed in pitch. Well, what is pitch? Pitch is tar. Think of the La Brea tar pits. They find a body that's 1,000 years old in it, and it's still got its hair. Its skin is still intact. It just looks like a shriveled old man, but it's not completely gone. It's not dissolved. It's not wasted away into nothingness. And when we slay our demons and dragons, the specter of it always remains. We can't,
if we don't really slay them, right?
Or if we slay it and then become arrogant, as that could never happen to us again. We could never think or be like that again. It's gone. I'm completely 1,000% rid of it. When there might just be enough of it, again, it's the specter of it remaining, that we could kind of go back down that rabbit hole again. I think it's a very good warning.
Yeah.
I think it could be a warning. I love the word that specter that you describe it. I think it could be a warning, but it also could be an acknowledgement of, this was a part of us, me. I had that capacity to go there, but I know this no longer serves me. So to honor that time that you were there and the transitions that you made is not necessarily a complete elimination. There's a bit of humbleness that comes within the process as well.
Yeah,
So-
and that's a good point, because a part of dark energy can remain with the energy of it can remain with us, and us turn it into something positive. All negative energy, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All the energy that is contained in negativity doesn't mean that the energy contained in and of itself is wrong or negative. It's how it's being used.
Well, if it's not integrated, it's negative. If the negative energy is outside one's consciousness, it's negative because it influences us in negative ways. It creates a negative cycle. It creates a negative reaction. And that's why we need to, and that's the same thing that happens with the dragon. The relationship was based on, I'm in control. And I am in control of the thing that I know I need to put to rest. And that's when it becomes dangerous, because now what you're seeing is exactly what you said. The negative becomes something that we want to play with and not seeing the danger of it. She doesn't see the danger of it. She doesn't, because she's overcome it once, twice, 39 times, and scarred the 40th time. She should be safe.
It's easy to become attracted to the negative, because it more quickly gives one a sense of power and control over the world around them. I love the episode in the original Star Trek series where Kirk got split into the good Kirk and the bad Kirk.
Yeah.
Excellent episode. This is, my gosh, this is what, 60 years ago.
Always good to reference things that are 3 times older than our current population. Yes.
And Roddenberry was dealing with it, in a TV series.
Well, they actually did it again in Picard, where data and lore existed in one form.
Yes.
And they argued against each other in regards to, so they did that again. So they do it a lot in Star Trek. I think this is facing the other. So yeah, I think it's a great story. I think it's a great story for young women and facing their dragons. She's a dragon slayer. We talk about facing our dragons. She needs to face her dragons, right?
Yeah.
The dragon is a mystical symbol. It's both a divine symbol and an evil symbol. But it contains both. And it also contains both the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And it creates on its own. So that symbolic aspect of the dragon is what we all need to integrate. Because the integration is what is the dragon? The dragon is whole. It doesn't need an other to create one more dragon. It is what creates. It is the creation. It is the destruction. Right? So I think this is a great fairy tale for young women. Okay. Any other thoughts on our episode today? It's a short story. We use the summarized version. It's actually a much longer story if you want to look it up. But we did the summarized version of the story. So next week, we'll come back with the 4 archetypes, hopefully.
And the Fitcher's bird.
And the Fitcher's bird. In 2 weeks, we will be back. All right. As we always leave you with the words, I am not afraid.
I am not afraid.
I am not afraid.
We are the Institute for Conflict, and we are not afraid. This is the Four Archetypes, and we will see you next week.